He coughs up blood, voice raspy, claiming he's nothing more than a man from Earth, a civilized place now distant in memory. A small voice calls out to him through the snow. It's a little girl named Sue, bringing a gift from her mother. The man gives a faint smile, accepting her kindness. She gently places a bread roll at his feet, urging him to feel better soon, and to make more of that good-smelling soap. As the blizzard howls and she disappears into the white, he repeats to himself, "I'm just someone from Earth, from a place of civility, who arrived here 50 years ago." He doesn't know how it all began. One moment, he was on his way to a company lecture with colleagues. The next, a landslide swallowed them whole. Everyone assumed they had died, but instead they awoke in a surreal new land, face to face with towering beasts, a three-tailed fox, a two-headed serpent, and people who flew across the sky like something out of fantasy novels. He remembers being stunned by the absurdity of it. Yet his friends, they seemed to thrive. Celestial beings, sages, descended from the heavens, marveling at his co-workers' unique gifts. Each of them was hand-picked and taken to different regions and spiritual realms. In the end, only he and the department director, Kim, were left behind. They tried to believe they were special too. Maybe they would awaken some hidden power, but as months passed, reality hit them hard. They had no extraordinary traits, they were ordinary, and so, to survive, they labored, did whatever work they could. 6 months in, Director Kim gave up on this meaningless grind. With what little money he had, he purchased a low-grade martial arts manual, the kind sold by street vendors. Oddly enough, in just 3 months, Kim had mastered it. His progress was miraculous. He trained further, gained recognition, joined a national force, and eventually became a renowned warrior across the continent. Meanwhile, our protagonist remains stuck, forgotten. He still wonders, was he ever meant for anything more? He always thought something might change, that fate would shift, but decades rolled by, and nothing came. Now, 50 years later, he's an old man, left to wither in the cold, abandoned by a world that never accepted him. He had fought to adapt, learned the language, how to write, how to earn. Using his memories from Earth, he crafted things like soap, selling them to make ends meet. His inventions were novel, but in this cutthroat martial world, even that wasn't enough. Richer merchants copied his ideas. His recipes were stolen. Factories scaled up production. And just like that, he was edged out. In stories, inventing soap might make you rich. In reality, it barely paid the bills. Since then, he's struggled to survive. And now, lying there, half frozen, he wonders what more he could have done. What did this world want from him? Why had he been dragged here if there was no place for him? He gave it everything. But in the end, all he got was emptiness. As his thoughts dim and consciousness fades, a final desperate wish echoes in his heart. Just a little strength, or a second chance. And just like that, the man dies. But the story doesn't end. His eyes snap open. He blinks at the sight of his youthful hands. Somehow, he's alive. Not just alive, young again, and in the same clothes he wore on that fateful day when he first arrived from Earth. Around him, his co-workers are groaning, clutching their heads, confused, disoriented. It's the same group from 50 years ago, and that's when it dawns on him. This is it, the day they first landed here. He remembers something odd, a flash of light just before he hit the ground back then, a strange sensation, and now he's here again, the very beginning. Someone shouts his name. Manager Seo! He snaps out of his thoughts. In most regression stories, the hero uses knowledge of the future to get ahead. But him? All he ever learned was how to make soap. Worse, he hardly remembers anything useful anymore. Living too long tends to blur the past. The guy calling out grows impatient. Hey, Suyun Ryang, are you deaf? Only now does it click. That's his name. No one's used it in decades. It had been so long since anyone addressed him like that. He didn't even react. The man calling out storms over and, out of nowhere, punches him in the face. The others gasp, shocked, frozen. The attacker curses him, says he must have fallen asleep while driving and caused the accident that dumped them here. He clearly doesn't know they died that day. The puncher keeps yelling, calls him an idiot, threatens his job, and suddenly memories resurface. That voice. It's John Mayang-hoon, section chief, a smug, arrogant jerk, the kind who wrote his father's name all the way to a cushy position, nepotism personified. For 32 years, this man had made Sue's life miserable. Back then, he would take all his anger out on Sue, and Sue would simply bow his head and apologize, because that's what he always did. Even in this other world, when thugs beat him, he apologized. When martial artists mocked him, he lowered his head. When robbed, insulted, cheated, he always apologized. But something had changed. Now, as the chief keeps yelling and others try to calm him down, Sue slowly rises to his feet. He remembers how exhausted he'd been on that day. John had dumped his workload onto him, and Sue, being the driver, hadn't even wanted to go on this trip. Everything had spiraled from there, and 50 years later, he still remembers the weight of always being silent. But now he knows better. He turns toward John, calmly says, "I know you're angry, but now's not the time to blame each other." Another guy, younger, cockier, walks up to swing at him too, hurling an insult at Sue's mother for good measure. The fist lands on Sue's cheek. But this time, Sue doesn't shrink away. His eyes lock onto the man with a cold, unwavering stare. He says, "I will never bow to someone I can handle." And he punches back, clean hit, right on the jaw. Everyone around him is stunned. Sue steps forward. In his past life, he'd been beaten down by warriors far stronger than these fools, countless times. He remembers those bandits who bloodied him just for picking herbs, the guards who beat him for missing tax payments, the years of humiliation. But today, he hits back. Blow after blow, he strikes. And as his knuckles crash into the attacker's face, fear takes root. Because Sue now understands the human mind, the moment you land a solid punch to the eye, fear grows tenfold. Another punch. Another, and then silence. The once loud John trembles, eyes wide. All he can whisper is, "I'm sorry." Sue may not have the talents those heavenly sages are searching for. He may never become a martial god. But in this life, he has something greater, the will to fight back and the power to change his own fate. John stands frozen, clutching his aching head, completely humiliated. The others rush to Seo, pleading with him to ease up. How could he attack a colleague like that? Seo quickly drops his tough act and pretends it was a heat-of-the-moment slip, apologizing like a normal person would. Manager Kim steps forward, not entirely on Seo's side. He admits John might have crossed a line, but Seo had gone too far by beating him senseless. Seo, however, knows that Kim is the only one here who might actually back him up in the long run, and that matters, because Kim is going to become a powerhouse martial artist soon. So Seo plays along, nodding in agreement, pretending to regret his actions, all part of the plan. He walks over to John and mumbles another apology. John looks ready to lash out again, but the second Seo glares at him, John shuts his mouth and looks away, completely rattled. Kim turns toward the dense forest ahead and says they need to find a village or shelter. Seo agrees. It's the logical move. But logic doesn't mean much in this savage realm. This isn't Earth. It's a land ruled by the pursuit of immortality, where power decides your fate. In this world, the strong feast on the weak. Every man with a blade is clawing for glory. This place, it's called the Path of Ascension, and unfortunately, there isn't a single town or outpost anywhere nearby. Seo speaks up, suggesting they camp somewhere safe before nightfall. Kim agrees, but asks where the vehicle is, the one loaded with gear and supplies. If they can find it, they'll have a much better shot at surviving. But Seo knows the truth. That car is gone. There's no chance of finding it, no matter how hard they look. Of course, just saying that won't convince anyone. Instead, he offers a solution, split into two groups. One group searches for the car, the other sets up camp. That way they cover all bases. Everyone agrees. And as expected, night falls with no sign of the vehicle. They gather around a fire, doing their best to stay warm. A blue-eyed girl, still unnamed, speaks up. She wonders aloud, if they were caught in a landslide, where did the car even end up? Kim and the others admit they have no idea. Nobody does. They're all lost. They munch on roasted chestnuts, and So casually says he found more nearby, so they won't run out anytime soon. Kim praises him, saying the situation would be far worse if not for Seo's quick thinking. He always knew Seo was dependable, even back at the company. Kim then recalls that Seo must have been exhausted that day. After all, John dumped his entire workload on him. Another girl, this one with striking yellow eyes, agrees. She says Seo has always been diligent. The others begin relaxing a little, lying on the ground and enjoying the brief moment of peace. But Seo already knows how this ends. In his previous life, these same people would abandon him. Every last one of them. He'd discovered this very cave back then, wandering alone through the dark for hours. Now he tells them he found it by chance. And yet, deep down, he knows this is the last night they'll share laughter like this. Later that night, under the pale glow of the moon, Seo trembles slightly. Standing just outside the cave, he welcomes an ominous presence. A massive three-tailed fox appears before him, the Forest Lord. It narrows its glowing eyes and comments that Seo smells strange, unlike any human it's encountered in its 1,000 years of life. The others, waking up from the noise, come out of the cave, only to freeze in terror at the sight. Seo quickly tells everyone to kneel and show respect. They obey without hesitation. The fox scowls, saying every time it meets humans, it's reminded how arrogant and disrespectful they are. By now, it would have torn them all apart, but one among them knew how to show reverence. Because of that, the fox decides to spare them. However, being in its territory comes with a price. One of them must offer up an arm. Seo remembers clearly. In his past life, no one had any idea what to do. Chaos erupted. Screaming, panic. The fox showed no mercy and took everyone's limbs. But this time, it's different. The fox is watching him closely, and Seo can sense it. A test. He already knew this might happen. In fact, he'd even prepared an herb to dull the pain. And so, without hesitation, he steps forward and declares he'll be the one to pay the price. Gasps all around. No one expected that. But the fox wastes no time. With a swift motion, it lunges and rips off Seo's arm in one brutal bite. Everyone flinches. The pain is sharp, but Seo bites down, grabs the herb, and applies it quickly. Blood pools at his feet, but he stands tall. The fox licks its lips, puzzled. It had expected something different from his scent. But in the end, he tastes just like any other human. Worse even, tainted blood, impure veins. Seo bows his head and apologizes that his sacrifice wasn't good enough. But the fox turns away, declaring that for his respectful gesture, they may stay in the forest for 7 days. During that time, no harm shall come to them. Its divine protection will keep them safe. And with that, the creature vanishes into the darkness. The group rushes to Seo's side, checking on him. He nods weakly and asks for help getting back into the cave. He explains he spoke with the fox before they arrived and learned something critical. They're not on Earth anymore. Gasps ripple through the group. Terror sets in, but it's undeniable. They saw a mythical creature with their own I. Yes, Seo lifts his severed arm and says that thanks to what he gave, they're safe. For now. Someone asks, what happens after those 7 days? Seo closes his eyes, voice low. They'll need to make another offering. The mood darkens. Desperation hangs in the air. But Seo doesn't say anything more. He just wants to sleep. He tells them he hopes they understand. Later, as night deepens, voices rise again. John is talking, loud enough for everyone to hear. He's asking who's going to be next to offer a limb when the week is up. His voice is laced with sarcasm. Another guy, the one in the Adidas tracksuit, speaks up. He argues that they can't just abandon Seo. He was the one who found the cave. He gave up his arm. He saved them. But John shrugs, says they should use Seo while they can, then toss him aside. The guy already lost an arm. He won't be useful for much longer. While John plots and schemes, Seo sits nearby, one arm gone, hand tucked into his coat pocket, silently cultivating his aura. From the way the others were whispering, it was clear what they were planning. To keep Seo alive just long enough to feed him to the forest, one limb at a time. Seo quietly picks up a hefty rock. Even with only one arm, his body remembers how to kill. John is nearby, digging in the dirt with his back turned. For a moment, Seo seriously considers ending him right here. He exhales deeply and drops the rock. Not now, he mutters. Fear is making everyone irrational. If he lashes out again, it'll just isolate him further, especially from Director Kim, the only ally who might still matter. Just then, someone shouts at John to shut his mouth before they really break his legs. Seo realizes not everyone's buying into John's schemes. There are still some voices of reason in this group. Night fades and a new day begins. Unlike the fox that demanded a whole arm, this time it's a two-headed snake. Fortunately, it only wants a taste of blood. In Seo's first life, the snake still fed, even off those who had already lost their limbs. It was brutal. This time, though, Section Chief O offers up his arm. The snake slithers close, takes a quick sip, and backs away. Apparently, it hated the taste. Seo knows why. The guy's bloodstream is more nicotine and booze than blood. Throw in his awful diet, and it's no wonder the snake looked disgusted. He tells Jan Mingyong to come gather herbs with him. It's a bit rude to call him by his full name, but Seo just asks plainly, "You hungry or not?" Jan nods. Seo waves him along. He figures he'll probably be the one offering his arm again next week, so if something goes wrong, someone else needs to know which herbs are safe to eat. Jan stumbles along awkwardly, clearly not expecting this kind of survival lesson. He thanks Seo for showing him, but Seo already knows the truth. The fox won't return next week, and Jan, he's not going to last long enough to use any of this. Later, Seo catches John picking the wrong plant again. "How many times do I have to tell you not to touch the poisonous ones?" he snaps. John winces and stammers out another apology. Seo doesn't let up. His passive aggressiveness from a lifetime of abuse now bubbles out with every word. John tries to explain he's exhausted. He's been digging nonstop. But Seo remembers clearly. This man made his life miserable from day one at the office, always piling on the work, always dodging responsibility, so he coldly tells him to keep going. They need to finish before sunset. Sometime later, John stumbles upon a massive root. Is this normal?" he asks, holding it up. Seo eyes the thick, ginseng-like root. "Looks like it," he replies casually. But he knows exactly what it is, a yellow bamboo root. In the real world, it would only grow the size of a finger. But here, in the Forest of Ascension, everything's amplified. For people who rely on spiritual power, it's not much, but for those who use brute strength, it's perfect. As their harvest grows, John gets more excited. He wants to know how much more they can find. But Seo can feel it. Something's coming. Then it happens. A flash of brilliant light explodes in the sky. John drops like a rock, face first into the dirt. Everyone else grabs their heads in pain and confusion. Figures descend from the heavens, their robes fluttering. One man in a golden robe smirks, calling it a surprise to find so many promising seeds in one spot. A voice behind him, wrapped in yellow, orders him to back off. "These ones are mine," he says. The sky folk begin bickering. Kim demands answers. "Who are you? What's going on?" One man in a black cloak scans the group. "Only 3 of you have spiritual roots," he says. "The rest are regular mortals." He casually summons a golden orb in his palm and hurls it at June. A blast of energy shoots through the clearing. An old sage watches with gleaming eyes. That one really does carry the power of golden thunder," he says with a grin. Then, another figure steps forward. Pale face, black lipstick, their appearance and voice leave Seo unsure of their gender, but they're dangerous, that much is clear. This figure strums a few eerie notes, and the blue-eyed girl collapses, screaming in pain. The lipstick-wearing figure smirks. "Found one with an immortal path," they say. A hulking man turns to Chief O and places a heavy hand on his shoulder. "You have the sacred body," he declares. "You'll be trained under Azjura." Chief O stiffens under the pressure. He clearly doesn't know how to respond. The lipstick one tilts their head. Maybe he'd do better in the Valley of Ghosts, they muse. Perfect place for someone seeking immortality. Now they're arguing over who gets to keep Chief O like he's a toy. Kim stands there, overwhelmed, unable to process what's happening. Suddenly, the golden-robed man pulls out a small vessel and flings it at John. With a whoosh, John is sucked inside like smoke. "Humans hesitate too much," he says. "I'll just take this one." The muscular man notices Seo's missing arm and nods respectfully. "You might just be a mortal, but you've got guts." Seo bows slightly, thanking him, but their attention has already shifted. The Skyfolk announce their departure. Their job here is done. The forest, they say, will now be blessed with 10 years of safety, thanks to their visit. Kim shouts, chasing after them. "Wait! We don't even know how to survive here!" But they're gone. Seo remembers shouting too in his past life, begging, pleading. No one listened, just like now. Still, there is one upside. Just as before, the moment the heavenly beings left, everyone. His injuries began healing. Even Seo's arm returned. Kim turns to him, desperate. "What do we do now? How do we live in a place like this?" Seo doesn't answer right away. His eyes follow the sky, a stream of stars heading toward one direction. Something's calling them. The next day, inside the cave, one of the girls lies in agony, coughing up blood. Another girl, this one wearing green, hovers nearby. Still don't know their names, but it doesn't seem like the story cares either. She says the one in pink is getting worse. Seo tells them to wait. Maybe someone will come. Maybe they'll get lucky and find help. The others exchange unsure glances. It sounds like wishful thinking. Just then, footsteps echo at the cave's mouth. A man enters. His presence feels overwhelming. He sneers. "Watching all of you squirm in here, it's like watching ants challenge a dragon." Kim steps forward. Who are you?" The stranger gives a small bow, eyes gleaming. "They call me the Sea Dragon King." The man with the imposing aura comments on the storm, noting that the rain drew him here. Strangely enough, the source wasn't the sky, it was the unconscious girl on the ground. Somehow, she had caused this with her spiritual energy, even without meaning to. He narrows his eyes. She looks like a normal girl. So how did she produce this kind of power unconsciously? Seo calmly explains that they're all new to this world, thrown here without warning, and that mysterious, powerful people keep showing up one after another. They're being picked off, one by one. The man laughs. So some of his colleagues had arrived before him and already claimed members of this group? How convenient that he just so happened to show up right in front of this one. Ironic, almost. He turns towards Seo. "Do you even know where you are?" he asks. "This is the path of ascension, a sacred place that leads to the upper realms. In just a few months, the gate of ascension will open. It only appears once every 1,000 years, so naturally, beings from all over are gathering here, each hoping to pass through and climb higher." Seo nods slowly, beginning to understand. Meanwhile, Kim demands to know what happened to their other companions. Why were they taken? The man, who calls himself Will, says that mortals like them have no idea how things work here. In this world, it's common for people to store their sex, entire buildings, even groups of followers, inside small objects using advanced magic. Most likely those people who took their friends did just that. They're being carried inside magic items. Will casually adds that inside his own artifact, a ring, lies the Sea Dragon's castle, which houses over 8,800 dragons in slumber. Dragons? Seo's not sure whether he means actual creatures or some kind of elite clan members. Will then glances back at the unconscious girl. Her spirit is unusual. If she joined his group, she could grow into something truly formidable. Kim quickly tries to stop him. Wait, you can't just take her. But before he can finish, Kim collapses to the ground, eyes bulging in pain. Will hasn't even touched him, yet the pressure alone nearly knocks him unconscious. This is the best outcome for all of you, Will says calmly. He gives the girl some of his blood and claims her as one of his disciples. And then, with a warning glare, he tells them plainly, never stand in the way of those who walk this path. Seo feels the air tighten. He's been caught in yet another power struggle. Will, however, spares them, says he's being merciful. Most in his position would have killed everyone already. With a dramatic burst of thunder, Will flies off into the sky, riding a massive dragon, leaving only swirling clouds behind. The next morning, almost everyone's gone. Kidnapped, or claimed. Only one girl remains. We still don't know her name, but she laughs maniacally, eyes wild. What is going on? Dragons? Sex? Flying people? What even is this place? Honestly, Seo can't blame her. That's probably exactly what he looked like when he first arrived here 50 years ago. She clutches his sleeve, trembling. Please, don't disappear too. I can't survive here alone. He looks at her. He feels sorry, but deep down he knows. Their time together is almost up. Suddenly, she lets out a cry and grabs her head. Something's coming. Kim rushes over, trying to help, but she gasps out, "It's too late, they're here." And just like that, a new arrival makes his entrance. An old man appears out of nowhere, riding a massive mechanical lion. It's surreal, like something out of a dream, or maybe a fever. The old man scans the area, puzzled. Mortals? On the path of ascension? After a moment, he figures it out. Ah, the gate must be stirring. The world is unstable. That explains how you slipped through. Then his eyes narrow. One of you released a powerful spiritual force. Who was it? His tone shifts. He's serious, says it felt like the presence of a sage descending from the heavens, a divine consciousness, and he believes it came from the girl. The man with him tries to step in. She's one of ours, he says. The old man doesn't care. One look, and Kim is sent flying again. Poor guy, always the one getting tossed around. Thankfully, Seo catches him, shielding the impact so Kim doesn't die outright. Even so, his ribs are a mess. The old man walks calmly toward the girl, kneels down, and cups her face. You'll be coming with me, he says. He admits her foundation is weak, but her sensitivity to divine energy is extraordinary. He believes he can unlock her true potential. She cries out, reaching for Kim and Seo. But the man shakes his head. You need to let go of worldly attachments, he says. Once I've claimed you, there's no turning back. To drive the point home, he lifts into the sky with her, still clutching her arm. She panics. Please, don't hurt them. I'll go with you. Just don't kill them. The old man pauses, satisfied. That's better. He tells her again, forget everyone, forget everything. That's the path she must take now. She lowers her head and agrees. As they float back toward the ground, the old man opens a portal with a flick of his hand. He says he'll spare the two men, but warns her, if she continues clinging to old ties, she'll never reach her true destiny. Still, at least he opens a gate for the others to return. A small gesture, but more than the others did. When the rest were taken, they didn't even leave a word. Seo watches as the Jian IRL vanishes beyond the veil. Her voice echoes faintly from the old man's ring, calling out to them, but already fading. The portal closes. Darkness. Then, light. Kim and So awaken in a different place. Crowds murmur. The sound of merchants shouting fills the air. Scrolls, textiles, spices. They're in a city. Seo stumbles to his feet. They're lying in an alley, surrounded by unfamiliar sights. He squints, shielding his eyes from the sun. This isn't where he landed in his past life. He doesn't recognize the buildings, the streets, nothing. So the old man really did toss them somewhere random. But as he turns the corner, something about the smell in the air, the way the shadows stretch, it clicks. He knows this place. He's standing in the legendary capital of Wango, the city of Sukkim. From everything he'd seen so far, Suyun Ryang had no natural gifts, no spiritual energy, no combat talent. The only thing he had going for him was the ability to go back in time. So now it was him versus the gifted, memory against raw power. Still seated in the alley, Director Kim sighs and mutters that he's starting to lose his mind. This whole situation feels surreal, like a dream that refuses to end. Sue agrees. Part of him wishes he'd wake up in his office chair back on Earth. Kim scratches his head, groaning that the two of them are basically done for. Everyone else got taken. Maybe they should feel grateful, but it doesn't feel like a win. Sue remembers that the last time he followed this same path, all he became was a bruised herb gatherer who got pushed around. He clenches his fists. Even if they don't know what lies ahead, staying in this alley forever isn't an option. They've got to start moving, do something. The city is massive, alive with people. But Kim stands confused as he listens to the crowd. Everyone seems to be talking about them, pointing, laughing. He has no idea why. Sue leans closer and says they're mocking their clothes. The style's all wrong for this region. Kim's even more lost. The language being spoken sounds like Chinese, but he doesn't understand a word. Sue calmly says he learned Chinese long ago, but honestly, even that's not true. In reality, the language here only looks like Chinese. The writing's similar, but the pronunciation and grammar are wildly different. In his last life, it took him months of humiliation and yelling just to pick up the basics. Still, that's not the priority right now. First, they need to change clothes, fast. Kim is skeptical. We've got no money, we can't even talk to people. But Sue has a plan. He leads Kim into a nearby herbalist shop and casually drops the large yellow root they found earlier into the sus. A shopkeeper's hand. The old merchant inspects it, and his eyes widen. That's no ordinary ginseng. It's yellow bamboo root, over 800 years old. Sue doesn't flinch. He tells the man to offer a fair price. The shopkeeper offers 15 silver ingots immediately. Kim stares in disbelief. Even Sue is shocked. In his previous life, he never held that much wealth at once. He half expected to negotiate, but now, he simply nods and takes the silver. Moments later, they're standing inside a luxurious residence Sue just rented. Fresh clothes hang in the wardrobe, new IDs are tucked into their bags, and a language primer is already laid out for Kim. That's what silver can buy in this world. Speed. But it came at a cost. After spending on housing, documents, and outfits, they were nearly broke again. 1 silver bar remained. That was it. Kim points out that Sue's back is still torn and bleeding. You're going to get infected if you don't patch that up. He adds that he'll stop calling him manager now. From today forward, he'll just call him by name, Su Yun Riang. Later that night, Sue explains the situation. They made good money off that root, but once the herbs run out, so does their income. They need something more permanent. Kim suggests selling the rest of the herbs, saving up, and opening a business. A stable idea. Makes sense. Sue nods. Back on Earth, Kim ran a decent-sized company. He knows what he's doing. But Sue isn't here just to survive. He came back for more than that. In his last life, Kim became a martial arts master by reading random street manuals. In just a few months, he was unbeatable. Later, after finding advanced scrolls, he became one of the top warriors in the land. Sue thinks, what if he started on advanced material now? Could he fast-track Kim's rise by 30 years? And if Sue stayed close the whole time, he could ride that wave. He tells Kim that martial arts seem like a major force in this world. Anyone who wants to succeed, even in business, needs to be able to defend themselves. Kim agrees. But there's a catch. Martial arts training is usually restricted to sect members. Outsiders can't just join. Sue's glad to hear that Kim isn't clueless. He's already familiar with the basics of this world. He explains that in this city, there are 7 known sects. The Demon Slayer sect focuses on swords and blades. The Blinding sect is specialized in swift strikes. The Buddhist temple uses internal energy with hand-to-hand combat. The House sect trains the scholars and tacticians, the sect of the 7 mysteries, and 3 other lesser-known ones. 3 of the 7 are demonic sects, dealing in curses and forbidden arts. Not much is known about them except that they're powerful and extremely dangerous. Sue asks Kim which one interests him. Without hesitation, Kim picks the Demon Slayer sect. If I'm going to fight, it'll be with a sword, he says. Perfect. That's exactly the path he took in the past. Kim suddenly pauses. Wait, how do you know all this already? Sue casually says he overheard it while buying their documents. Fast forward 3 months. They arrive at the entrance to the Demon Slayer sect. A guard stands outside eyeing them. What's your business here? Sue bows respect. Fully, and says he brought his elder brother, who's interested in learning martial arts. The guard eyes their expensive clothing. They clearly have money, but he isn't impressed. At your age, not likely. You're too late. Sue doesn't budge. He politely asks to meet someone from the upper ranks, slipping the man a silver coin during the request. It works. Inside the sect, an elder receives them. You're here for martial arts? Sue opens his pouch full of silver ingots and places it down. Yes, strictly for self-defense. The elder eyes the silver, then nods. All right, but understand, you'll get no favors. You'll enter as external disciples, nothing more, and only one of you will be accepted. Kim looks surprised and starts to protest, but Sue immediately says it's fine. Just him, that's all we need. The elder nods again. Then come find me tomorrow. I'll place you with the other disciples. As they walk out, Kim turns to Sue. You sure about this? You could have joined too. Sue shrugs. I've never been good at sports. You go train. I'll run the business. Kim frowns. Still, I'm not sure I'll be able to learn much. This stuff isn't exactly in my comfort zone. Sue smiles. Don't worry, you'll surprise yourself. Time passes. 7 months later, the sect holds a tournament. Every disciple is expected to compete. At the top of the arena, the sect leader watches from his throne, unimpressed. Who is this outsider? He asks. On the field below, Kim stands tall. He had just single-handedly defeated every veteran disciple in the sect, warriors who had trained there for years. Mastering martial arts isn't just about repetition, it's about understanding. True mastery comes when your mind and body move as one with the technique. Without that, even a hard-working student only becomes a third-rate fighter. Beyond that level, you need insight, you need obsession. As Kim steps into the ring, other disciples shout that he's just an outsider, someone who doesn't belong. They swear he'll never beat them. But the truth is, knowledge only goes so far. Some people are born with the kind of talent that makes effort seem irrelevant. Those rare few advance through ranks effortlessly, laughing at the idea of slow progress. The Demon Slayer sect already had its share of geniuses, but now, for the first time, someone from the outside had arrived and crushed them all, every so-called prodigy, in just 7 months. Director Kim didn't just become skilled, he had mastered every single technique the sect offered. He wasn't just good, he had become a top-tier martial artist. The elder couldn't understand it. It defied logic. For someone to grow that quickly, you'd normally need a support group, years of resources, constant training, and guidance. Kim had none of that. No background, no prior experience, no ties to any sect. Yet here he was. It was as if the centuries-old legacy of the sect had been shattered by this one man's hands. In response, the elders gave a brutal order: capture him. CO had anticipated this. He knew the sect wouldn't take kindly to an outsider disrupting their order. 7 months was all it took to throw everything into chaos. It wasn't just jealousy. They genuinely feared him. Now they were accusing Kim of being a spy. But what surprised CO wasn't that Kim had been thrown in a cell. It was that he was in one too. He had no martial skills, no fighting ability, and yet here he was, locked up alongside the most dangerous man in the beat. Wilding. As CO asked Kim if he's worried, people are whispering if this follows the usual route, they'll try to cripple him, maybe destroy his core, maybe worse. Kim nods slowly. He's aware, but still. He continues to meditate, to train. For some reason, he believes that pushing through will lead him to the next stage, and deep down he knows it will. CO watches quietly. Becoming a first-rate warrior was already a rare achievement, but moving past that, that's the domain of true masters. Only a few in the entire world reach that realm. Beyond that is the peak, a place where only legends reside, and Kim was already on that path. Not 30 years ahead of schedule, but 40. 7 days pass. Inside the cell, a soft light glows. Petals drift around Kim as he draws in spiritual energy. CO instantly recognizes the sign. The light, the stillness, the aura. This is what happens when someone nears the peak of martial cultivation. Kim opens his eyes and calmly states that he's broken through. The next level has been reached, and now he fears no one in the sect. CO is stunned. He praises him, saying Kim's growth has even surpassed what he'd hoped for. Kim smiles, saying even he's surprised. Maybe all those martial arts stories he read as a kid planted something in him. Before they can process what's next, a squad rushes in. The sect has given the final order: destroy Kim's core. They're now convinced he's part of a demonic sect, a traitor in disguise. Kim stands calmly as the enforcers close in. Seo tries to talk them down. He already explained, we're not spies. This is all a misunderstanding. But one of them snarls and slams a fist into Seo's face, telling him to shut up. He claims to have overheard them speaking in a strange language. Proof enough for him. Kim doesn't hesitate. His blade flashes. A clean strike, not deep enough to sever, but precise enough to knock the sword out of the attacker's hand. The others pause. One tries to charge in, but Kim dispatches him with a single graceful motion. Another drops his weapon before even reaching him. In seconds, all the guards are disarmed, each of them clutching their wrist, stunned. They stagger away, whispering in disbelief. He's reached the peak. Kim turns to Seo. I'm heading out. I can't stay here anymore. I need to go train in other sects. What about you? Seo, of course, doesn't even hesitate. I'm coming with you. They agree to meet at the unorthodox dragon sect. Later, atop a snowy mountain, Kim's sword drips with blood. He asks Seo what took him so long. Seo chuckles. Guess the director's a little faster than me these days. He looks at Kim's expression and his weapon. This man wasn't violent by nature, but this world had changed him. Seo wonders just for a moment if they'll ever see Earth again. If they could go back, he'd trade everything for a peaceful life. But that future doesn't exist anymore. Now, all that matters is survival. After being betrayed by their first sect, they raided the Dragon House and took control of its secrets. 2 years later, they entered the Wangu region. One by one, they crushed sects that stood in their path. By the third year, every banner, every emblem in that land had fallen by Kim's blade. He was no longer just a rising star. In Wangu, he was now known as the strongest martial artist under the heavens, and with that title, he began to unify the factions. Sect by sect, they bowed to his strength. 7 years passed. Sue and Kim were like brothers now, despite the difference in age. They ate together, fought together, trained together, and one day, Kim presented him with something special, a martial technique, one he had created from scratch. It was called the Mountain Cutter, designed specifically for Sue, tailored to his body, his energy, and his style. Sue opens the scroll and his eyes widen. This was unlike anything he'd ever seen, not just powerful, but elegant. Only one problem. He had zero talent. He trained with the greatest warrior alive. He was handed a technique crafted for him, and still, after a full year of training, he could barely qualify as a third-rate fighter. Eventually, he sighed. Maybe I'm just not meant to fight, but that was fine. He had a different kind of skill. He was good with medicine, and perhaps that was enough. A decade passed. Then one quiet day, Sue witnessed something rare, something spoken of only in myths. The 5 elemental forces of the world converged and entered a single man. Kim suddenly groaned and stumbled, his body writhing. Sue rushed to him in panic. His hair turned black and long, his muscles tightened, his presence shifted, energy poured from his body like a tidal wave. Sue called out his name, but the transformation continued. The mansion he bought with his retirement funds is beautiful, but far too big and far too empty. Suddenly, he spots movement in the hedges. He steps closer and freezes. It's Kim. He still isn't used to seeing him with that long hair. Sue rushes forward, asking where he's been and why he vanished. Kim just collapses onto the grass, looking up at the sky. He calls out to Sue and admits something. All this time, he truly believed he was blessed with talent. A martial arts came naturally to him. Sue smirks. Of course you were blessed. Who else could have been my friend? Kim chuckles softly. Among ordinary people, I guess I wasn't ordinary. They laugh for a moment, but Kim's expression darkens. He shares something Sue didn't expect. He had finally faced one of those mysterious cultivators, the ones they encountered decades ago, the ones who flew in and stole their comrades. Sue knows these beings rarely show themselves. They hide in the shadows and quietly manipulate the world. And as the martial alliance grew in strength, those hidden powers began to take notice. They tried to infiltrate, influence, control. No one could stop them. Going against them was like going against fate itself. That's why Kim stepped down. He didn't want to confront them as a leader. He wanted to face them alone, as a man. It wasn't easy. Most ignored him outright. They said he wasn't worthy. They vanished into illusions. Every challenge he issued was declined. But 5 years ago, one of them finally accepted. Sue's eyes widen. Did you win? Kim hesitates, then nods. Yes. Sue can't help but praise him. Thank goodness he wasn't leading the alliance during that battle, or the consequences might have been devastating. Kim explains what really happened. He gave everything he had in that duel, his entire life's worth of training, technique, and strength, and all he managed was a shallow cut on the opponent's fingertip. That cut, that tiny scratch, was the victory. The cultivator had said, if you can leave even a single mark, I'll count it as a win. And so, by that definition, Kim won. Sue stares at him. Then that guy must have been one of the top 10 in the world, right? Kim shakes his head. No, he says. He was barely above the entry level of cultivation. In terms of martial strength, that cultivator was no more advanced than a beginner. Sue can't believe it. These were the same beings from his past life. They were like gods, and yet Kim, someone who had reached the very peak of humanity, could barely land a scratch. Sue knows Kim is a genius, a once-in-a-century talent. In his prime, he was like a sword in flight, untouchable. And yet, against even the lowest-tier cultivator, he was powerless. Kim says that's what shook him most. He had spent his whole life in a well, mistaking it for the world. But these beings, they were walking natural disasters. Still, he says, he managed to slice off one of their hands in a later encounter. Sue leans forward. So you beat him again? Kim shakes his head. No, the man slapped on a talisman, regrew the hand, and walked away. That's when Kim realized he'd hit his ceiling. This was the limit of martial arts. No matter how far he pushed, this was as far as it went. He tells Sue he came to say goodbye. The cultivator had seen Kim's dedication, his unshakable will, and offered him something rare, a place in their sect. He would give up martial arts and begin the path of immortality. Sue is stunned. That's impossible. You can't cultivate without a spiritual root. But Kim explains his skeletal reconstruction wasn't just a physical change. It elevated his potential to the level of someone born with a spiritual root. He had trained his entire life just to reach the starting point of someone from that world. He raises his hand, slices through the air, and reality itself bends. Kim steps toward a portal. He turns back one last time. I'm leaving you something. Before Sue can answer, Kim is gone. In his hands, a scroll, a record of how to reach cultivation, not by birthright but through martial arts. But Sue's heart is heavy. Where are you going without me? Time passes again. Sue, now older than ever, coughs quietly. He sits alone in his giant home, wrapped in silence. It's been 50 years since he arrived in this world. And here he is, once again dying from something as mundane as a cold, just like before. He reflects on the irony. After everything, this was how it ends. Same day, same result. Different clothes, better house, but still powerless in the end. Still, this time, he has no regrets. He gave his all. He studied endlessly, trained daily, never wasted a moment, never even sought marriage or comfort. Because of that, he united the martial sects. He earned fame, wealth, and respect. He accomplished everything a mortal could. So why, at this final moment, does he feel so empty? Could it be that if he and Kim had pushed just a little harder, they might have reached the heavens together? He'll never know. His body can't answer that question anymore. All that remains is silence. This was the end of his second regression, and the beginning of something else. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next life. This is ManhwaAuraHub, and we'll see you in the next chapter.